Every piece of gold you have ever seen is older than the Earth. Not metaphorically, literally. Every atom of gold on this planet was forged billions of years ago inside a collision between two neutron stars. Two dead suns slamming together at a third the speed of light, temperatures reaching billions of degrees, and in that explosion, element 79 was scattered into space. The gold in a wedding ring was made before the solar system existed. So how did a species of upright apes walking around on a small rocky planet end up finding pieces of a dead star in a riverbed? When Earth formed 4.6 billion years ago, it was a molten ball of rock and metal. Heavy elements like gold and platinum, being extremely dense, sank toward the center during a process called the iron catastrophe. They were pulled downward by gravity into what became the Earth's core. The gold that should be accessible to us was locked away, 3,000 kilometers beneath our feet, unreachable by anything except theoretical physics. The amount of gold in the Earth's core is estimated to be enough to coat the entire surface of the planet in a layer about half a meter thick. It is there. We just cannot get to it. So where did the gold that humans eventually discovered come from? Meteorites. In 2011, a geochemist named Matthias Wilbold at the University of Bristol published a study in Nature analyzing tungsten isotope ratios in 3.8 billion-year-old rocks from Greenland. His findings supported a theory called the late veneer hypothesis, the idea that a period of intense asteroid bombardment roughly 3.8 to 4.1 billion years ago delivered a fresh supply of heavy elements to Earth's surface, including gold, platinum, and iridium. The gold we wear, the gold we trade, the gold sitting in bank vaults and museum displays all over the world, that gold was delivered by rocks falling from space long after the planet itself had already formed. And we know where those atoms were originally made because we watched it happen. On August 17th, 2017, the LIGO and Virgo gravitational wave detectors observed the merger of two neutron stars 130 million light-years away, an event designated GW170817. The electromagnetic afterglow revealed that a single collision had produced roughly 10 Earth masses of gold. One collision, 10 Earths worth. That observation confirmed what astrophysicist Brian Metzger at Columbia University had predicted years earlier. Gold is not made inside ordinary stars the way carbon or oxygen is. Gold is made when stars die violently. Every gold nugget that has ever been pulled from a riverbed on this planet is recycled stellar wreckage, which means every time an ancient human bent down to pick up a gold nugget from a riverbed, they were picking up a piece of an asteroid. They had absolutely no idea. But that is what was happening. Now here is why humans found gold before they found almost anything else metallic. And this is the part that is easy to overlook because it sounds too simple. Gold is lazy. Not in a moral sense, in a chemical one. Gold has 79 protons and 79 electrons, and the way those electrons are arranged makes gold almost completely chemically inert. It does not react with oxygen. It does not react with water. It does not rust, tarnish, corrode, discolor, or degrade in any way that a human being would notice over the course of a lifetime or 1,000 lifetimes. A gold nugget sitting in a riverbed looks exactly the same today as it did the day it eroded out of its parent rock. It could sit there for 1,000,000 years, and you would not be able to tell. Every other metal that exists in meaningful quantities near the Earth's surface hides. Copper turns green, iron turns red and crumbles. Silver blackens. Tin and lead are locked inside ores that look like ordinary rocks. They require furnaces, charcoal, temperatures above 1,000 degrees, and thousands of years of accumulated metallurgical knowledge to extract. Gold requires you to look down. And here's the second thing. Gold is dense, 19.3 grams per cubic centimeter, nearly twice as heavy as lead. When water flows over rock that contains gold, it erodes the gold out and carries it downstream. But because gold is so much heavier than the sand and gravel around it, it settles. It drops to the bottom. It collects in the inside bends of rivers where the current slows, behind large boulders, in crevices of bedrock, in the quiet pools where heavy particles accumulate. And it sits there, bright yellow, catching whatever light hits the water, while everything around it is brown and gray and forgettable. You do not need a geology degree to notice gold. You need eyes. So picture the most likely version of how this actually happened. Some human, thousands of years before the first written record of anything, is kneeling at a river, drinking, washing, fishing, doing something routine and forgettable. And they notice something at the bottom of the water that is the wrong color. Too bright, too yellow. They reach down and pick it up. It is heavy in their hand, heavier than any stone that size should be. It is smooth. It does not crumble. They squeeze it and it bends. They hit it with a rock and it flattens instead of shattering. They cannot break it. They cannot scratch it with a stone tool. It just sits there in their palm, yellow and warm and permanent, looking like a piece of the sun. We do not know who that person was. We do not know where they were standing. We do not know the year, the season, or the century. But we know it happened because the archaeological record shows us what came after. The oldest processed gold artifacts ever found come from a place most people have never heard of, the Varna Necropolis on the western shore of the Black Sea in Bulgaria. In 1972, an excavator operator named Rachel Marinov was digging a trench for an electrical cable near the city of Varna when his machine cut into something that did not belong in the soil. Archaeologist Ivan Ivanov of the Varna Archaeological Museum took over the excavation, and what he uncovered rewrote the timeline of human civilization. A cemetery, over 300 graves, and inside those graves more than 3,000 gold objects totaling roughly 6 kilograms. 6 kilograms of gold, from 4,560 to 4,450 BC, more than 6,500 years ago. But here is the detail that should genuinely rearrange how you think about early human society. The gold was not distributed evenly. Most graves had little or none. And then there was grave 43, a single male burial that contained more gold than has been found in the entire rest of the world for that time period. A gold scepter, a gold breastplate, gold rings, bracelets, earrings, and decorative plaques. This person, whoever he was buried with a concentration of wealth that makes modern inequality look quaint. 6,500 years ago, in a settlement on the edge of the Black Sea, somebody was already important enough to take that much gold into the ground. Think about what that means for the discovery of gold. By 4,500 BC, gold was already rare enough to be valuable, worked enough to be shaped into complex objects, and socially loaded enough to be buried with the dead as a marker of power. This was not a culture that had just discovered gold. This was a culture that had been working with it long enough to build an entire system of meaning around it, which means the actual discovery happened much earlier, possibly centuries earlier, possibly millennia. We just have no way to find the moment because the first person who picked up a gold nugget from a riverbed did not leave a record. They left nothing. They just held something shiny and thought it mattered. And they were right. Now, here is a question you might not have considered. Why did they think it mattered? A gold nugget does not feed you. It does not keep you warm. You cannot use it to cut meat or scrape a hide. It is soft, so soft that it registers only 2.5 to 3 on the Mohs hardness scale, barely harder than a fingernail. It makes a terrible tool, a terrible weapon. In purely practical terms, gold is one of the most useless materials that a human being living without industrial technology could possibly encounter. And yet from the very first moment we can identify it in the archaeological record, people wanted it, fought over it, hoarded it, buried it with their dead. Why? In 2014, researchers Vanessa Patrick and Henrik Hagtvedt at the University of Houston published a study in the Journal of Consumer Psychology that found something unexpected. Human beings are instinctively attracted to glossy, reflective surfaces. Not because of cultural conditioning, not because advertising told them to be, because of evolution. Their hypothesis is that the attraction to shininess evolved as a proxy for water detection. Reflective, light-catching surfaces in a natural environment almost always mean water, and water means survival. When they tested this by giving subjects water to drink before measuring their preference for shiny versus matte objects, the preference for glossy surfaces decreased. The thirst was literally part of the attraction. Gold catches light. It reflects it back in the yellow-orange spectrum, wavelengths between 550 and 600 nanometers, which the human visual system associates with warmth, sunlight, and energy. Gold looks alive. It shines in a way that stone does not, and it never stops shining because unlike every other metal, it never tarnishes, never corrodes, never changes. The nugget looks the same on the day you die as it did on the day you found it. In a world where everything decays, where food rots, where wood crumbles, where even stone eventually weathers away, gold just sits there, permanent, unchanged, indestructible. It is not difficult to understand why ancient people associated it with the divine. It behaved like nothing else in the natural world. It looked like it was not supposed to be here, and technically it was not. It fell from the sky. Nearly every ancient culture that encountered gold connected it to the sun. In ancient Egypt, gold was called nub, and it was considered the flesh of the sun god Ra. The region to Egypt's south, where the richest deposits lay, was called Nubia, almost certainly derived from that word. Gold was not jewelry in ancient Egypt. Gold was theology. Pharaohs were buried in it because they were becoming gods, and gods were made of sunlight, and sunlight was made of gold. When Howard Carter opened the tomb of Tutankhamun on November 4, 1922, the innermost coffin was solid gold, 110 kilograms. The death mask alone weighed 11 kilograms. 3,000 years underground, and it looked like it had been polished that morning. Because that is what gold does. It waits. And Egypt did not just admire gold. Egypt industrialized it. The Turin papyrus map, created around 1150 BC by a scribe named Amenhotep during the reign of Ramesses IV, is the oldest surviving geological and topographical map in human history. It shows the gold mining region of Wadi Hammamat in the eastern desert. It marks rock types, roads, settlements, and the location of gold deposits with a precision that modern geologists have confirmed is remarkably accurate. This was not casual prospecting. This was state-level resource extraction mapped by professional surveyors 3,100 years ago. And the mines themselves were nightmares. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, writing around 60 BC but citing earlier sources, described workers forced into narrow tunnels. Children used to crawl into shafts too small for adults, oil lamps strapped to foreheads in the dark. Gold was beautiful. Getting it out of the ground was something else entirely. Now go east to Mesopotamia. Between 1922 and 1934, British archaeologist Leonard Woolley excavated the royal tombs of Ur in what is now southern Iraq. The tombs dated to roughly 2600 to 2450 BC, and what Woolley found inside them was staggering. A gold helmet, the helmet of Meskelamdug, beaten from a single sheet of gold with individual hairs represented on the surface. Queen Puabi's headdress, an elaborate arrangement of gold, leaves, ribbons, and rings, a dagger with a blade made of solid gold, and a sheath inlaid with lapis lazuli, and dozens of attendants buried alongside their rulers, many wearing gold jewelry, apparently killed at the time of the burial. Human sacrifice dressed in gold. Whatever gold meant to these people, it was worth dying next to. And on the other side of the world, the Muisca people in the highlands of what is now Colombia were coating their new chiefs in gold dust for an inauguration ceremony on Lake Guatavita. The chief, covered head to toe in powdered gold, was rowed out on a raft and washed himself in the lake, sending the gold down into the water as an offering. When Spanish conquistadors heard about this, they called him El Dorado, the Golden One, and spent decades searching for a city of gold that did not exist. They never found the city because the city was never the point. The gold was a sacrifice, not a treasure. The Muisca raft, a gold model depicting the ceremony, was found in a cave near Pasca, Colombia in 1969. It sits today in the Gold Museum in Bogota, among more than 55,000 gold pieces. The Inca called gold the sweat of the sun. When Pizarro captured the Inca Emperor Atahualpa in 1532, the ransom demanded was a room filled with gold roughly 6.7 meters long, 5.2 meters wide, and 2.7 meters high. Atahualpa paid it. Pizarro killed him anyway. Let's talk about what happened when humans figured out that the shiny stuff in the river could also be pulled from rock. Because that transition from picking up nuggets to actually mining and refining gold changed the trajectory of civilization. The oldest known gold mine in the world is at a site called Sakdrisi in the Republic of Georgia, in the southern Caucasus. Discovered in 2004 and excavated by a team including Thomas Stollner of the German Mining Museum in Bochum, the mine dates to approximately 3100 BC. 5,000 years ago, people were digging gold out of hard rock using stone tools and fire setting, a technique where you heat the rock face with fire and then throw cold water on it to crack it. The gold didn't come to them anymore. They went and got it. And here's where we need to talk about the strangest mythological detail in the entire gold story. In the region of Colchis, roughly modern-day western Georgia, ancient people placed sheepskins in riverbeds to trap fine particles of gold carried by the current. The gold flakes stuck in the wool. The fleeces were then hung to dry and the gold shaken out. The Greek geographer Strabo, writing around 7 BC, described this practice in his Geographica. And Colchis, the kingdom that practiced this technique, is the exact kingdom where Jason sailed with his Argonauts to retrieve the golden fleece. A Greek myth about a magical golden sheepskin may be a cultural memory of a real gold collection technology practiced in a real place that really did produce gold. The golden fleece was not magic, it was a filter. Now fast forward to roughly 600 BC, Western Anatolia, the kingdom of Lydia. Under King Alyattes and then his son Croesus, Lydian metallurgists developed a process called cementation, where a gold-silver alloy called electrum was heated with salt at high temperature, causing the silver to react with the chlorine and separate out, leaving purer gold behind. Andrew Ramage and Paul Craddock of the British Museum documented the archaeological evidence of this refinery at the Lydian capital of Sardis. And with that purified gold, Croesus issued the first reliably pure gold coins in human history around 550 BC. Before Croesus, gold was treasure. After Croesus, gold was money. That single innovation, the ability to stamp a guaranteed weight and purity of gold into a standardized shape, created the concept of currency that the world still runs on. Every economy on Earth traces some part of its financial architecture back to a king in Western Turkey, who figured out how to separate gold from silver and stamp his name on the result. And then, much later, gold started doing something it had never done before in human history. It moved people, hundreds of thousands of them, simultaneously. On January 24, 1848, a carpenter named James Marshall was building a sawmill for a rancher named John Sutter in Coloma, California, when he noticed something glinting in the tail race channel. Gold. Within a year, roughly 300,000 people had flooded into California. By 1855, approximately $2 billion worth of gold had been pulled from the ground in 1850s dollars. San Francisco went from a town of about 1,000 people to a city of 25,000 in 2 years. In 1851, Edward Hargreaves discovered gold near Bathurst in New South Wales, Australia. Having learned prospecting techniques in California, and Australia's population tripled in a decade. In 1886, an Australian prospector named George Harrison found gold on the Witwatersrand Ridge in South Africa, and the city of Johannesburg was founded that same year around the largest gold deposit ever discovered, a deposit that has since produced roughly 40% of all gold ever mined, about 50,000 metric tons. Gold moved people across oceans. It built cities overnight. It destroyed indigenous communities. It started wars, toppled governments, financed empires, and rearranged the political geography of entire continents. And it did all of that because of a chemical property. Element 79 does not oxidize. That is the entire foundation. A full electron shell that makes one metal inert while every other metal rusts, corrodes, and disappears. The human obsession with gold, the empires, the conquests, the tombs stuffed with gleaming objects, the vaults beneath central banks, all of it traces back to the arrangement of 79 electrons around a nucleus. So here is the answer, and here is how confident we can be in it. Humans did not discover gold in a single moment. There was no eureka, no inventor, no date that belongs on a timeline. What happened was gradual, inevitable, and almost certainly repeated hundreds or thousands of times across different continents and different millennia. Sometime between roughly 40,000 BC and 6,000 BC in riverbeds scattered across Africa, the Near East, and Central Asia, individual humans knelt at water, noticed something bright and heavy in the sediment, picked it up, and recognized that it was different from everything else in their world. It was beautiful. It was permanent. It could be shaped but not destroyed. And because it was rare, because it looked like captured sunlight, because it never changed, they wanted more of it. The rest, Varna, Egypt, Lydia, California, Johannesburg, every gold rush and gold war and gold vault in human history, all of it is just the consequence of that first moment multiplied by 10,000 years. Given the combination of gold's visibility, its inertness, its presence in placer deposits that concentrated exactly where humans already spend time, and the confirmed evidence of sophisticated gold working by 4,500 BC, the probability that humans would discover gold given sufficient time and proximity to the right geology is effectively 100%. Every culture that had access to gold-bearing rivers found it. Everyone. The Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Celts, the Muisca, the Inca, the Australian Aboriginal peoples who have been on their continent for 65,000 years. There are no exceptions. You do not need to teach a human to find gold. You just need to put them near a river that has some. The rest takes care of itself. All the gold ever mined in human history, every ounce pulled from every mine and every river on every continent for the past 7,000 years, adds up to about 209,000 metric tons. If you melted it all into a single cube, it would measure roughly 22 meters per side. It would fit on a tennis court. That is the entire physical output of the longest-running obsession in the history of our species. Wars fought, civilizations built, continents colonized, millions of lives spent digging in the dark, all for a cube of metal that would fit in your backyard. And every atom in that cube was made in a collision between two dead stars, drifted through space for billions of years, fell to Earth on the back of an asteroid, sat in a riverbed until some human, with no name, bent down and picked it up, and thought, for reasons they could not have explained, but that you would understand immediately, that it was worth keeping. Tonight, somewhere, someone is wearing a gold ring. They are probably not thinking about neutron stars. They are not thinking about Varna or Croesus or James Marshall kneeling in a tail race in California. They are just wearing it because it means something to them, because someone gave it to them, or because they like the way it looks. And that impulse, that quiet, unreasonable attachment to a yellow metal that does nothing useful, that impulse is at least 6,500 years old, and probably much older, and it shows no sign of stopping. Gold does not feed you. Gold does not shelter you. Gold does not keep you alive. But for as long as humans have been human, we have looked at it and seen something worth more than what it is, something permanent in a world that is not. And maybe that is the whole point. Maybe the reason we discovered gold is the same reason we kept it. Not because it was useful, because it lasted, and we wanted something that would